Alrighty. Well, I was doing a little research just for my own, I was planning on doing a video about the economy, but I wasn't planning on doing this specific video on the economy because I wasn't expecting to find what I found. So while I was doing some research, this is like from it's anecdotal evidence from my everyday life. So when I went to the grocery store in the past month and a half, I've noticed that the prices are continuously coming down and that my bill is, getting lower and lower and lower. However, there are certain things that are starting to raise in price, like energy costs. I just got that wonderful little update on my energy costs. Um, but I was kind of wondering, like, well, they're still talking about, inflation and they're still talking about like how the prices are still too high. What you don't hear about is the corporate profits. So I figured that if we're going to play that game, we might as well hold them to account too. Because if we're going to be looking at our neighbors' pocketbooks and worrying about, what, Joe or Jane has to spend, we should start wondering, are these companies recording record profits off our backs? Because thinflation is something that is just, it's been happening since, I think that this was like coined in 2022. So it's been at least 2 years or shrinkflation, sorry, where we've all noticed it, where we're just like, wow, yeah, this bag of chips seems a little bit lighter and more expensive. These cookies, there seems to be a smaller package. Yeah, it seems like we're getting less for more. It's bread, same thing. Same with pretty much everything. But then you look deeper into these industries and the supply chain excuse doesn't fit anymore because our supply chain, looking at it, has been corrected. The market has corrected itself based on those supply chain disruptions. But what was really starting to bug me was when I went to Google and I started getting so much different like counter information to each other, where one article would say this is why inflation has been so high, corporate greed, blah blah blah, and then you would have something from like Forbes or it was always like economists say, they would always lead with that. Economists say that inflation is not caused by greed. But then we start going and we find stuff specifically like this. Now, if you notice, this was written in 2024. These other articles that I've been finding specifically about, everything's so high, everything's so low, blah, 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 they're from 2022. So the updated information that we're getting is super disingenuous, number one, because we're not getting like this is where I was going with it. We're not getting live reports on, the uh oh shit, this is behind a paywall. Well, fine, we're gonna do what every good American does. We're just gonna read the header. Greedflation caused more than half of last year's surge in inflation as corporate profits remain at all-time high. Weird. Here we go. Greedflation, or seller's inflation, describes inflation that is driven by corporate profits. This can happen through mechanisms like price gouging, price fixing, windfall gains, resulting in from information asymmetry monopoly. So that this one, the information asymmetry. That's what we're experiencing now, where you see some. We'll look at this. Think corporate greed is leading cause of inflation? Think again, CNN says. Some progressives, wow, CNN really going for that center. Some progressives have frequently blamed corporate greed for fueling the high cost of living in America. Okay, I can read. That Americans are fed up with. Yet new research from the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco. Here, let's take a look at that new research from the Federal Reserve Bank. Yeah, okay. Labor costs are an important factor of production costs. Yes. Okay, so are you guys gaslighting us into saying your high wages are causing this? Yeah, I think that's what they're doing because uh you know what they were doing with the narrative of the $15 minimum wage, and then you had Kristen Cinema's little performative. Well, you can't sit here bitching that you're not making enough money when, the people who represent you voted against your interest to make more money. And you also really should be skeptical about anybody that's trying to tell you, well, these prices are going to go too high if we start paying you too much. Because I kind of like how this happened, where everybody was saying that about the McDonald's price increases. And then they brought up the ones from California, the $20 minimum wage. And that they like immediately they started justifying McDonald's price increases and going, well, the $20 minimum wage, this was what was going to happen. It's like, yeah, but then you see that McDonald's is still recording profits, but then they're, cutting stores, they're increasing prices on other goods. So where does this all meet up? Hmm? What, because think about just in general, what, like the $5 meal, right? Based on their logic, they made a meal that's $5 again, which the $5 meal, let's be real, what it cost is $3 fucking dollars, even 10 years ago. I'm gonna be real because cheeseburger. This idea that like cheeseburgers were 50 cents, where the fuck were you? Like seriously, I never have lived in a country where a cheeseburger was fucking 50 cents. So stop it. It was always a buck. Like it was always a dollar cheeseburger. That's why went and got the dollar cheeseburger. Like trust me, I grew up in the early 2000s, like or came up in the early 2000s, I should say. Post 16. So like when I was driving myself and making my own money, I did have a pretty good grasp on how much these things cost because that's how I lived. And also, I mean, I smoked until I was 24. So it was one of those things where I was also purchasing cigarettes along with it. I don't understand how anybody can afford to smoke cigarettes anymore, but that's just an aside. But yeah, I kind of found that this was a little odd that, they're going to go quoting the Federal Reserve Bank. When the rest of us, I think that your political affiliation doesn't matter as much with this one, where I could probably talk to any Trump supporter and they would just agree. It's like, yeah, the prices are high, but I don't necessarily think it's from supply chain. Like as much as they want to make it like, because if you're number one, if you are that MAGA or like that right wing where you cannot make it a non-political argument where you just go, it's just because of the Democrats. It's like, dude, stop. Like you have officially been brainwashed because now you're doing the thing where you're like, oh, it's person I don't like. It's person that I disagree with that's causing this instead of big corporation fucking us. And they're doing it specifically by keeping us fighting with each other and not recognizing that this is the main source of the problem. So I'm not usually very friendly to being gaslit. I can recognize when that's happening, specifically from some parental issues that I've had. But oh boy, are we being gaslit because they really are just trying to make us convinced that these supply chain issues are still a thing. I mean, hell, ask any Republican, and I mean this. Like, let's do a little social experiment, in your real life. Ask anybody that has this argument with you, and that's if you get out and actually have real arguments with people, because I'm shocked at how many people don't do that. Just ask them, like, how much are they paying, and where do you think it's coming from? And if they say Democrats, then just kind of throw this back in their face and just be like, well, how about the greedflation? I don't think it's the greedflation anymore. Did you see that? Because like these are the first people to tell you that like I don't trust the Federal Reserve. I don't trust economists. I don't trust whoever the fuck is in the government. They don't trust them until they say something that confirms their confirmation bias. Like we're all that way a little bit, but this is the ultimate one where it's like, guys, what it's like you're almost rah about getting duped, because yeah, here we go, Reuters. Corporate greed not to blame for price pressures. The Fed shows. Let's at least give them the benefit of the doubt, shall we? As rising. All right. While markups for motor vehicles and petroleum prices did rise sharply during 2021 and 2022 inflation surge, which went up to 7%, we're at 2 point something now. Markups across the entire spectrum of U.S. goods and services has been relatively flat. See, like this is the gaslighting that I was just talking about. See, what are you talking about, guys? We haven't had inflation. That what? Like the price of everything's been pretty flat. Bread, what? Just cars. It's just these big ticket items, you know. That's all we've really seen anything. Don't blame us. Don't blame us. As such, rising markups have not been the main driver of the recent surge and subsequent decline of inflation during the current recovery. Then what could it be? If the inflation rate, again, I'm not a math whiz, but it's gone from 7.1% to 2.7% in March, right? Okay. That's a 5% decrease. 5% decrease in a matter of 2 years. So with that 5% increase, we would start thinking, okay, so the prices would come down quicker than that. You know, like the market would adjust the prices to bring it back down and be fair to the American consumer. You know, because those corporations, they totally got our best interests at heart. Come on, guys. Like, they're not going to totally do stock buybacks. They're not going to, buy up whatever company you're working for if they're profitable to a certain degree and then sell it to a hedge fund. WeatherTech, anybody? WeatherTech is a local company for us. They are out of Bolingbrook. And hey, get this shit. So a hedge fund broker has offered to buy their company. The same thing just happened with Doc Martens. So if you guys know anything about when a hedge fund takes over something like this, or whatever, private equity, the products tend to suffer. And it's not just a tend to, they do. Like they owe it because they cut costs on manufacturing and then they cut costs by, taking storefronts away. But then they pass it to you and it's like they almost like did you ever just like find like a little newspaper or something at your work where like the Wall Street Journal or something like that, and then you're just like, oh, inflation is so high. I mean, look at what's happening to me. My personal experience says inflation high because this happened to me. But then you don't look any deeper past the fact that, yeah, you just got bought out by a hedge fund company. And because of that, they didn't value your work or they didn't value your position. So then they just said, tough titties, get the hell out. Yeah, but inflation. This is why I'm so skeptical every time that somebody says inflation's so high, inflation's so bad, inflation's so high, inflation's so bad. Because it's the same thing with the interest rates. Like, it doesn't make sense when we have, record joblessness. Like, I think that we have an unemployment rate that hasn't been matched since like the Eisenhower administration. So that should really tell you something as far as like the American workers. But this goes into like, well, they have to work multiple jobs. They're still not paying us a fair minimum wage. Gee, wonder why that happened. I happen to live in a state where we did raise the minimum wage and it's coming quicker. But that's also if you're a right winger from, the Chicagoland area, apparently it's J.B. Pritzker. It's the Democrats. It's all they're raising our taxes. I don't know why. So I did this fun little thing where it was called Tax Tracker, where you can just trace your taxes. Where do they go? Yeah, weird. Weird in this internet age that if you actually like have an inquisitive mind that you can find the information you're looking for. And I found that my county taxes specifically, and they did go up. I'm not even going to pretend that they didn't. Like my property tax definitely increased. However, I saw something that I was pretty happy with where I saw exactly what my county taxes were going to. So we have a few bridges like around me that were they were in pretty bad shape. And I mean, like to the point where like I'd drive over them and I'd just be like, oh, like every time I'd be like iron gripping my steering wheel, like let's just get over it, let's just get over it, come on, come on, come on. Anytime there was traffic on that bridge, you could like feel it sway. It was scary, man. Um, but now that it's been fixed, obviously, is not a problem. Unless they used, you know, bad, concrete or anything like that. We'll see because I'm a little worried that these companies cutting corners. That's gonna come back to bite us in the ass again. It's almost kind of like that's recently happened where we cut some corners and now it's coming back to bite us in the ass. Uh-oh. I mean, I've had that happen in my own life. Just like I've learned my lesson as far as hiring contractors. You know what? If you want it done cheap, you're gonna get the work that you just paid for. Because yeah, I've had that unfortunate situation happen where I'm not gonna go too deep into that, but yeah, I did. I wanted to just bring this to everybody else's attention too. Um, and anybody, obviously, if you are an economist or you know more about this than me, like, please chime in and explain this to me because it's not. I'm not finding like the connective tissue here where I'm just like, okay, like I'll admit like, okay, so if corporate greed is not a situation or is not a thing, then uh why still so high and it not be inflation? Because even with 2.7% inflation, if you apply that to like my grocery bill, it just doesn't add up. So what the hell? And it's not all just them. Oh, we're doing mass discounts on these things. Like, for instance, while I was at the grocery store, I bought a little, what is it? One of those like pre-made or pre-make like shredded meat situations that you just put in like the microwave, whatever. So the original cost for it was 10.99. And when I bought it, it was down to 6.99. So then again, just me having too much time on my hands and being a little inquisitive, I decided to just do a quick Google and go, how much is this online? Started looking through Instacart, and lo and behold, the flat price of that item specifically was 6.99. Weird. It's almost like my local grocery store, who is owned by Albertsons, was like, oh, well, we can increase the price on this because was it the item? Was it Hormel? It could be. I mean, that's the whole thing about having these giant corporations be as big as they are, working together, and then gaslighting us collectively. Like, that's a lot of fun just to kind of, be gaslit and then have somebody who makes less money than you tell you how, oh, well, we got to be more caring for these corporations, I can't, like, this goes back to even freaking Reaganomics, but it's the trickle down effect where they're just like, oh, if we're nice to these guys, they'll be nice to us. And then, they get fired and then they're just like, well, Trump daddy will take care of me. It's got to be something like that. But anyway, as I said, if you know more about this, please chime in. I realistically am looking to kind of learn more about this and also kind of see through like the narratives, whether it be, left wing, right wing. Because again, things like this and things like this, it's kind of flies in the face of things like this, where, which one is it, guys? Is it Fortune who's the liar? Is it CNN who's the liar? Weird, because you think that they're both, big time publications. I mean, Fortune has kind of dwindled off a little bit, but CNN, like seriously, dude, like that. What's his name? Jeff Zucker, I think is his name. The guy who took over for the Time Warner Discovery merger. It has been so apparent. Like you can see it in the Fox or in the Fox. Yeah, they might as well be Fox News hosts at this point because you can see it in their hosts' eyes, man. Like so many of them are just like, You want me to say this shit and report on this shit when you know damn well that this ain't true? Like, okay, we'll be the Fox News, I guess. Um, but yeah, I'm also like, is the Fed right here? Because let's do just a quick little glance here. Of course, the inflation crisis was not limited to just a few key sectors. It was economy wide, which I'll buy that. Aggregate markups, the more relevant measure of overall inflation, have stayed essentially flat. That's bullshit. That's literally bullshit. As a fucking consumer, I can tell you right now. God, these people who write these, like the person who wrote this, do they ever go grocery shopping? Are they able to, like, at least with USA Today, at least they can market opinion. Like, put your opinion in this. I would love to wonder who wrote this. Number one, Matt Egan. Okay, so Matt, I'm just gonna add, like, have you ever gone grocery shopping? Because I'm starting to see some bullshit here. Rising markups have not been the main driver of the recent surge and subsequent decline of inflation during the current recovery. In fact, the SF Fed found that the path to collective markups over the past 3 years is not unusual compared to with previous recoveries. So, so you're telling me that because we had a economic downturn because of a global pandemic that, oh no. Oh, so you want us to be fair to you for that? You want us to be fair, huh? But in 2021, what was that whole thing of, we found out you were fucking us? This runs counter to the argument that some progressives, including Elizabeth Warren, who for years has refocused the inflation argument on corporate greed, because that's what it is. This isn't just me being biased. This is ridiculous. If you can't see through a news corporation like CNN Business, nonetheless, like CNBC does the same shit. Do you know how long they've been preparing us for the recession? Because this goes back to, God, 2022, weirdly enough, where every quarter they start saying, oh, get ready, we're headed towards that recession. And then December and March hit. Oh, well, we got more jobs than expected and the economy's recovering and inflation's gone down. So, I'm going to just ask it. What do economists actually do besides just speculate on the market and then speculate for things that they're are they manipulating the market with that kind of tactic? Perhaps. This is why I wish the average American was more involved in, economics. Also, you want a conspiracy theory, guys? I think this is why they don't focus too much on this in high school. Like we take a basic econ class, and then if you're if you're really spicy, then you'll go to college and go into finance. But for the rest of us, this is why the average American thinks of the deficit as like a household budget, where they're like, the deficit's so high. What if they call in the debt? Then China goes down too, dumbass. Apparently, you don't know how freaking world economics work again. And I'm not an expert. I just know the baseline where I'm just like, okay, so they call in the debt and then what? And then they tank their own economy? That seems like a real great idea. Like, everybody also is just so prepared, that, like, how has nobody recognized, like, just this era that we have lived in where, okay, so we've had the Afghanistan war and we've had the, war on terror, but we've been preparing for wars with Iran. We've been preparing for wars with China, with wars with Russia. I mean, hell, this nuclear threat has been a thing. Like, how many people realistically, like, if you can ask your parents this, did they honest to God think that just one day the Russians, the Ruskies would just decide, you know what? I'm going to push button. We're going mutual assured destruction. Okay, well, and that's also kind of flies in the face of the joke of them being nihilists, where it's like, if Russians were true nihilists, I'm pretty sure none of us would be here. But that's just aside. But yeah, I think that we're being gaslit. I think that this is a little ridiculous that they're really kind of pitting us, us versus them. Like it's constantly that kind of stuff. Also like this, yeah, when inflation has come down as quickly as it has, well, quickly. I'm sorry. You know what? I'm not even buying that because yeah, no, it's been fucked. Like I'm not one of those, you know, uh, these progressives that they're talking about like Elizabeth Warren, where I'm just going, what inflation? What are you talking about? No, it's I just see it as like, okay, you're still screwing me because you can, and there are no checks and balances in position to make sure that you don't. And then when we ask about them, you're just like, what do you mean? We don't need those. We don't guardrails. What? Who needs guardrails? Come on, guys. So a few of you fell off and died. It's okay. I mean, we just had one of what was it, the deli meat outbreak. Yeah, it was just we cut some corners, we cut some jobs, we saved some money. But you know what? We didn't need those inspectors to begin with anyhow, because your tummy will your gut bacteria will take care of those nasty nasty diseases that haven't been around since the 1800s. In a mass. Yeah, yeah, okay. Let's get real as Americans, shall we? Like it's ridiculous. But anyway, I do appreciate you checking out this story specifically because these are the ones that I know I'm gonna have like, oh, okay, like if I break 100, I'm even lucky because yeah. Let's go proving my point that this is the reason we're in the position that we're in is because it's not sexy, it's not drama, it's not as easy as just being like their fault. It's their fault, and I don't like them. I don't like how they dress. I don't like how they live, and I don't like their hats. But it's their fault. So yeah. Anyway, as I was saying, I do appreciate you being here. Like, comment, subscribe. I'm trying to get to 1,000. And yeah, so I'll see you in the next one.